Daily Red Devil for all of your latest Manchester United transfer news and talk. We're back with lots and lots to discuss around Manchester United. But before we get into that, please do me a small favour. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. I'm live throughout the whole of the transfer window. Whenever there's anything that goes breaking, I do go live immediately. So make sure you subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell. And make sure to like the video as well. It doesn't cost any money and it really helps the channel out. On this evening's show, we are going to be talking about 4 players who could be leaving this January. This has come out from Fabrizio Romano, so we'll be talking about that. We'll also be talking about a potential new contract for Harry Maguire. Now, this isn't the extension. This is a whole new contract, so we'll be talking about that. And we'll also be talking about Marcus Rashford, with a report coming out this evening that apparently INEOS have set a £50 million price tag for Marcus Rashford. So we will be talking about that. But before we get into any of that, I've got a question for you about Harry Maguire. Should Manchester United keep Harry Maguire at the club? Now, I want you to let me know your thoughts on this in the comment section below. I'm going to do a couple of minutes where I give you all of the information first, because I think most people will be sat here screaming no at their screen. But I want to present to you the other side of the argument so you can kind of hear what I'm saying and you kind of have both pictures. Does that make sense? If you're like 100% I don't want Maguire, then feel free to put no to Maguire in the comments now. That's fine. But if you're willing to give me 30 seconds, I will try and explain the news that's just come out and effectively why Manchester United are considering this. So Maguire has got currently 12 months left of his Manchester United contract, okay? But Manchester United have an option to extend that contract by a further 12 months. So they have a contract extension clause. Now, the story coming out this evening, this is coming from James Ducker, who reports for The Telegraph. He is a very reliable journalist. He is he works for The Telegraph and he is the Manchester United correspondent for The Telegraph here in the UK. And he is reporting this evening that Manchester United are reluctant to trigger the 1-year extension on Harry Maguire's existing £190,000 a week contract. Now, I agree with that fully. That would be a poor decision. That would be, in my opinion, a bad decision, okay? We definitely should not be keeping Harry Maguire at the club on £190,000 a week. I mean, let's be honest, that's absolutely laughable. Would you agree? Like, look at some of the best defenders in the Premier League, okay? Who would you say are the top 5 defenders in the Premier League? Saliba, probably Gabriel, who else? Van Dijk. Like, for example, let's have a look at Saliba. Saliba's contract at Arsenal, he's on 190 grand a week. So William Saliba playing for Arsenal earns the same amount as what Harry Maguire earns playing for Manchester United. Let's have a look at Van Dijk. I assume Van Dijk's on big wages, I imagine, but let's have a little look. Van Dijk at Liverpool earns 220,000 a week. So he's only getting paid 30,000 a week more than what Harry Maguire get paid. I mean, that just sums it up for me. It's not Maguire's fault. He got offered a contract 6 years ago when we signed him from Leicester, and Man United were dumb enough to give him that amount of money. Now, I don't actually think Harry Maguire is an awful player. I don't think he's amazing, but he's not terrible. I think he does try. He does have the right attitude, etc., etc. And I think he's had a lot of abuse for maybe unfair. Is he Manchester United quality? Well, he's not a Rio Ferdinand or a Vidic, but is he good enough to play for this Man United team at the moment? Of course he is. He's probably our best defender at the moment. He's better than Martinez. He's better than Lindelof. He's better than Johnny Evans. He's probably the same as Van Dijk, De Ligt. And let's be honest, he's better than Lenny Yoro. Lenny Yoro is an 18-year-old kid with no experience. So let's be real here. Harry Maguire probably is our best defender at the moment. Now, the story does go on to say, this is why I wanted you to give me a couple of minutes before you put your comments in about whether you'd keep him. The story does say that apparently Manchester United are now opening talks with Maguire over a new contract on reduced wages. So, let me rephrase that question for you. Would you keep Harry Maguire at Manchester United if he was to sign on reduced wages? Now, for me, these reduced wages would have to be about half of what he's earning now. I'm talking 80 to 100 grand a week, tops. Not 150, not 170. If he was willing to accept 80 to 100 grand per week in wages, which is less than half of what he's on now, I think there's an argument to keep him. I'm not saying for 5-6 years. I'm talking, a 2 or 3 year contract on 80 grand a week. I think it would be sensible. Now, the reason I think it would be sensible, okay, is this. Manchester United have 3 centre-backs who are out of contract in the summer. Maguire, Johnny Evans, and Lindelof. They're not going to get any money for Lindelof, and they're not going to get any money for Johnny Evans. And they're probably not going to get any money for Maguire. So let's play the alternative card here, right? Let's say that Manchester United allow all 3 of those players to go. Lindelof, Maguire, Johnny Evans. All 3 out of contract in June. Okay? That would mean that the only centre-backs that we have at the club would be Lisandro Martinez, De Ligt, and Lenny Yoro. That's it. Now, I know Luke Shaw's played at left-sided centre-back, but he's injured all the time. I know Mazraoui has played as a right-sided centre-back. So maybe maybe you could say that Mazraoui's a centre-back as well, for argument's sake. But the point I'm making here is Ruben Amorim plays a back 3 with 3 centre-backs. So realistically, we probably need, I would say, 5 or 6 centre-backs. That's how much we've got at the moment. We've got 6 centre-backs at the moment. Maguire, Lindelof, Johnny Evans, Martinez, De Ligt, and Lenny Yoro. 6. So I think we need 6. We can't have less than 6 because you need 3 starters and then 2 or 3 rotational players. So if we were to let all 3 of those players leave in the summer, Maguire, Lindelof, and Evans, we would then have to go and buy 3 more centre-backs. Who would you buy? And where would you get the money from? Because it's not like we're going to get 50 million for Maguire, 50 million for Evans, and 50 million for Lindelof. They would all leave on free transfers. Yes, you'd be saving money on their wages, but you'd still need to find the money somewhere to buy 3 new centre-backs, which is completely unrealistic. Okay, Johnny Evans is 36, 37. He's probably going to retire. Let him go. Lindelof's injured all the time. There's no argument to keep Lindelof. Whereas, although Maguire isn't world-class, yes, he's slow, fine, but I think there is a bit of an argument out of those 3 players that maybe you do give him a new contract. But that's the question for you. To simplify it, should Manchester United keep Harry Maguire, give him a new contract on reduced wages? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section. I will get a poll going now, so anybody who's watching live can get involved. So it'll be this. Should United give Maguire... should United give Maguire a new contract on reduced wages? I'm going to say 80 to 100k a week. Right. You can have your say. So anybody who's watching this video not live, obviously you can't get involved in the poll. But if you're watching it live, you can get involved in the poll. Now, I personally... if he was willing to half his wage, we're talking 80 to 100k a week, half of what he's on now, I would give him a 2-year contract. Why not? I don't think he's terrible in a back 3. We saw him play for England in a back 3, and he was one of the best centre-backs at the Euros, wasn't it, a few years ago? So for that reason alone, if we let me rephrase this, right? Say we'd just been bought by Qatar, the debt had been cleared, and we were told we have a £500 million budget, I would say I would drive Maguire to wherever he wants to go now. I'd get rid of him. 100%. I'd offer to go and pick him up from Carrington myself and drive him to his next club. But the reality of the matter is we don't have that. The reality of the matter is that we need to sell players to buy players. And the reality of the matter is that our current situation finds us in a position where in the summer, 3 centre-backs will be leaving and we won't be getting a single penny for any of them. Maguire, Lindelof, Evans, all out of contract. So there isn't the budget to buy 3 new centre-backs. And I know some people will say, oh, why don't you promote somebody from the youth? Okay, yeah, great. That could be one of the 3 centre-backs. And the way I see it is this, right? You promote somebody from the youth, Kokoni, I think his name is, who's been on the bench a couple of times. Promote him from the youth. Give Maguire a new short-term, a new contract on heavily reduced wages. And then you go and buy a proper new centre-back. Okay? That's what I would do. There's your 3 centre-backs. You've got Kokoni from the youth, Maguire, and, I don't know, a Branthwaite, Gonzalo Inacio, Diamondi from Sporting Lisbon, somebody like that, right? So you have those 3 as your new centre-backs, and then you also have Martinez, De Ligt, and Lenny Yoro. And that means you have 6 centre-backs now. That's what I would do, because my biggest fear is that if Manchester United let all 3 of those players go, they're not going to have the money to be able to replace them properly. Or if they do have the money to replace them properly, they won't then have the money to buy a left wing-back, a right wing-back, another midfielder, an attacking midfielder, another striker, another goalkeeper. Like, we need so many positions filled that having to buy 3 centre-backs in one window is just completely unrealistic, let's be honest. It doesn't ever happen. especially when you think of the priorities. For me, my priorities would be a left wing back, number one. Okay, that's my number one priority. Then I'm buying somebody to partner Ugarte in the midfield. That's my second priority. Then I'm buying a striker. We need a world-class striker. Like, do you see what I mean? Like, the centre-back is actually pretty far down the pecking order at the moment because we don't even have a left wing-back. We don't have a proper striker. Højlund, let's be honest, is a player developing still. He's not world-class. He's a prospect player. Whereas at the moment, we've got a World Cup winner in Lisandro Martinez. We've got De Ligt, who's played at the highest level for since he was 16 at Ajax. We've got Lenny Yoro, who's a very exciting player coming through. Like, we have got some good options in that centre-back position, but obviously, because of the formational change under Ruben Amorim, it now means that before, you might have got away with having 4 or 5 centre-backs if you were only having a back 4, right? Because you only play 2 centre-backs. Whereas now that we play 3 centre-backs, you need to have a bigger squad in that area. But yeah, I'd be very interested to see what you guys think. So my take on it is this, just to round up this part of the show. I would not keep Maguire on 190 grand a week. I would let him go 100%. But if we were able to do a reduced salary, I would probably keep him. Maximum for me would be about 100k a week. But just to confirm, if we'd have been taken over by Qatar and the debt was cleared and we had a massive budget, I would have 100% let Maguire go. So it's all circumstantial. And we find ourselves in a position now where we're owned by Jim Ratcliffe, but really we're owned by the Glazers, let's be honest. We still have the debt. We're still being told we need to sell to buy. It's just the same, just with a different brand in front of it. And that brand is Jim Ratcliffe, the local lad, born around the back of Old Trafford. You know how this story's painted, but it is just the same. We are just still run by the Glazers. You can sugarcoat it however you like. We are run by the Glazers. The finances are the same. The budget's the same. Sell to buy is the narrative. We don't have any money. It's no different. We're in debt. Like, it's the same. So we have to be realistic. But yeah, let me know what you guys think. Let me know your thoughts. And just to be very, very clear as well, I can see some people saying, oh, we should sell him. You can't sell Maguire. His contract expires in June. He can agree a deal with another club now. So there's no resale value. There's no resale value in Lindelof. There's no resale value in Johnny Evans. And there's no resale value in Maguire. They're all out of contract. They're all on high wages. And they're all, not very desirable, let's be honest. So, yeah. Let's see what people are saying in the chat this evening. Gamer TV says that we should go for Victor Gyökeres and see if they want Rashford in return. I can't see that happening personally, my friend, but it would be nice. It would be nice. S.A. Khalik says, is the youth defender you mentioned any good, though? I'm going to be completely honest with you, right? I haven't really seen that much of Goodwill Kokoni. If there's anybody in the chat who's watched him more regularly, let me know. But just to be very, very clear, this guy's 16 years of age. Like, are we really saying that a 16-year-old's going to start playing every week for Man United? Probably not. It's the same with Harry Amas. Like, the best thing for Goodwill Kokoni, who might turn out to be a starter for Man United in the future, hopefully he does, the best thing for him would be to go and get a loan in the Championship or in League One. If we're putting the players' development first, we wouldn't be trying to put him into the first team now. We'd be saying, you know what? He's a prospect. Let's loan him out to, I don't know, Sunderland in the Championship. Let's go and let him get some experience. The same with Amas. Same with Dan Gore. The same with Toby Collier. Like, these players should be loaned out, like we did with Amad Diallo. Remember, Amad Diallo joined Manchester United for like £20 million off Atalanta 3-4 years ago, and he's only just started playing now. He went off on he went to Rangers. He did well there. He went to Sunderland there. He won their Player of the Season. Like, this is what we should be doing with our young players. We shouldn't be throwing our young players into a boiling pot, which is this toxicity of a Manchester United team who are sat 14th in the Premier League. What good is it going to do a player like Goodwill Kokoni to be thrown into this team at the age of 16 who are failing miserably? It's not a good idea. I'm sorry. I see this so much with people who are like obsessed with, oh, let's just play the youth. Let's just play the youth. I get the point that, that the fans are so fed up with, the first team, these overpaid players who don't care and all they care about is money. I feel your pain. I feel exactly the same way. I want rid of 95% of our first team, but I don't think the answer is to effectively throw these young youth players into this horrible situation. I mean, maybe it works. Maybe next game they start Dan Gore, they start Goodwill Kokoni, they start Harry Amas, they start Toby Collier, they start Chido Obi Martin, Maybe they do that and we start winning and everyone's like, oh, this is great. But What if that doesn't happen? You know, what happens if we play against Southampton with our youth team and we get battered? Like, I just think it's a massive, massive risk. And I think if you're putting these young, I mean, some of them are teenagers. Goodwill Kokoni's a 16-year-old. He's a kid still. If we're putting their futures first, we would say, right, the best thing for you is to go off on loan, and in 2 or 3 years, hopefully you'll be at the level to be a first-team player, you know? And that's how it should be. And that's how most top clubs do it. I know there are some exceptions, you know, people like Lamine Yamal at Barcelona. I know Kobe Main, who started playing in the first team quite young and didn't go off on loan, but it's very rare. Very, very rare in the modern game that you get players being thrown in at the deep end at the age of 16. It's just not sensible. But I understand, you know, people's frustration. But yeah, I'm not sure whether this Goodwill Kokoni guy is that good. You know, I haven't seen enough of him to really comment. But if there's anybody who, you know, has, let me know. Somebody in the chat saying that Goodwill Kokoni should start over Harry Maguire. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Based on what? Like, how much have you seen of him? Anyway, you can get involved in that poll. It's live on the chat now. The question is simple. Should Manchester United give Maguire a new contract on reduced wages? Let me know your thoughts. Everyone who's just joined the video, if you could do me a little favour, please like the video. We've got over 500 people watching live now, which is absolutely amazing. I have set a target of 500 for this video, so if you haven't liked it, go and do that now. And make sure you subscribe as well. I'm going to be doing extra shows during the transfer window, so I'll be live in the morning and I'll be live in the evening every single day. So if you want to get involved in the channel, click subscribe, hit the notification bell. It doesn't cost you any money. Live every single day in the morning and the evening, bringing you all of the latest news around Manchester United. But yeah, let's move on from that though. I spent quite a long time there talking about Harry Maguire, but yeah, I think it was a good conversation, and hopefully you're having your say in the comments on how you feel about it all. But moving on from that, I want to talk now about 4 players who could potentially leave Manchester United in the January window. So this is coming out from Fabrizio Romano via a tweet that he put out a couple of hours ago, where he's listing off the players who Manchester United are effectively trying to push out of the club in January. So this is very, very interesting. Now, the 4 players, Casemiro, I think we can all agree on that. Antony, it's the other one. Real Betis, we'll talk about him in a minute. And then there's 2 more. Malacia, which I think was a little bit of a surprise to see, considering we don't have any left backs, and Malacia is our only fit left back, but okay. And the other one's obviously Marcus Rashford. So let's start with Antony. So this story here is coming out from Paul Hurst, who writes for The Times here in the UK. And he is reporting today that Real Betis and La Liga are trying to sign Antony on loan in January. The story says that Real Betis need to sell Assane Diar before they can enter negotiations with Manchester United. It says the Spanish side will also need to pay part of Antony's wages. Now, the story is that apparently Real Betis have now sold this player that they needed to sell. So they are now actively trying to agree a deal to sign Antony. Now, for me, this doesn't make any sense. Why would we loan out Antony? Unless there's going to be some obligation to buy, it doesn't make much sense. Because a team like Real Betis and La Liga are not going to be able to cover all of his wages. That's clear to see. You have a look at Real Betis' wage bill for this season. Their current highest earning player is Isco, who's on about £100,000 a week. Whereas Antony's on £200,000 a week. So I think best case scenario, they might pay half of his salary. Some people will say that's better than nothing. But then if we let Antony go, we need to sign another player. Realistically, unless we're going to play a youth player, I don't know. Just to be clear, I want Antony to leave 100%. I just think loaning him out to a team who can't even cover his wages is probably not the most sensible option, realistically. You know, and it doesn't mean that we can then, go and buy another player. You know, we need money. We need to sell a player. So I don't know. Let me know what you think. Like, would you loan out? Let's do another poll. Well, you know, let's get the interaction going. So the results of the last poll, 53% of people would give Maguire a new contract, and 47% of you say you wouldn't. So let's do this. Let's let's do this. Would you loan Anthony to Real Betis? United. So it's going to be United would have to cover half his wages. Okay, so the poll is set up. Obviously, again, if you're watching this back on repeat, you can't get involved in the poll because it's only for the live show, but you can obviously get involved in the comment section. And the question is this: would you loan Anthony to Real Betis? Manchester United would have to reportedly cover half of his wages. Simple yes or no. Obviously, if you want to get your comments in, then you can do that as well. But yeah, for me, it just doesn't make much sense, realistically, because it doesn't then allow us to go and buy a new player. And if we have to sell to buy, fine. But loaning to then not be able to buy anybody, that just sounds kind of backwards to me. But yeah. So that's the latest on Anthony. Let's move on over to Marcus Rashford. So there's lots and lots of reports coming up linking Rashford with an exit from Manchester United. Obviously, we know that he supposedly wants to leave, that Ruben Amorim wants him gone, and INEOS also want to sell him. So we know that. That's all factual. Now, in relation to his transfer fee, the story coming out this evening, this is coming from Ben Jacobs, a couple of other people as well, is that apparently Manchester United are asking for 40-50 million for Marcus Rashford. I mean, I'd be absolutely amazed if we got 40-50 million for Marcus Rashford. I'd be over the moon. I'd be happy with 40, let alone 50. Ben Jacobs is also reporting this evening that apparently PSG are willing to return to the table for Marcus Rashford if Marcus Rashford says he definitely wants to join, the price and the wages are right. So PSG are interested in Rashford. But obviously this happened a couple of years ago where PSG went all out for Marcus Rashford. They submitted an offer to Manchester United, but then Marcus Rashford used that as leverage to get a new deal from Manchester United. And obviously PSG didn't like that. They felt like they'd been played. They felt like they'd been cheated. So there is still a bit of a weird relationship between PSG and Marcus Rashford. But there are also some reports suggesting that apparently an external agent could enter the frame to try and get a deal done here. So similar in the summer, obviously Mendes, the super agent, Jorge Mendes, who's the agent of Ronaldo, he helped broker a deal involving Manuel Ugarte to Manchester United. Even though he wasn't the agent of Ugarte, he helped to get that deal done. He also got the deal done for João Neves to join PSG, and he was involved in lots and lots of deals over the summer. And there are some reports suggesting that that Mendes might be involved in a PSG approach for Marcus Rashford. Obviously, we know that at the moment, Marcus Rashford is represented by his brother, who's not really even an agent. He doesn't represent any other players. He's just, he's just a family member who's effectively making the decisions for Rashford, which I think is probably why we find ourselves where we are with Rashford, to be honest. I think a lot of the problems that Marcus Rashford has found himself in has been from bad advice from family members. I don't think he's a bad person. I think, he has good intentions at heart, but I think the people around him are the people that have effectively poisoned his mind. That's the way I see it. Maybe that's me being, forgiving, but I honestly just think that, Marcus Rashford has been influenced by the wrong people. But in relation to him leaving Manchester United, there is a real possibility that will happen. As Ben Jacobs said, it is just all about how much money Man United want, what his wages would be, and whether he actually wants to leave the club as well. He has to tell PSG that he wants to leave and join PSG before they make an approach for him. They don't want to feel like they've been burned again by making an approach for somebody and then them deciding they want to stay. They're not going to be happy for that to happen. So, that's the latest on Marcus Rashford, which is interesting. But yeah, moving on from that, let's see what else we've got in the chat today. Sam says, do you think Qatar are still interested in buying Man United? I mean, it's impossible to say really, isn't it? What I would say is this. If Manchester United became available, I'm sure Qatar would be interested still, yeah. But are they going to actively make an approach now? Probably not. Because I don't think it really works like that. I think, if somebody's potentially considering selling a club, they inform the New York Stock Exchange, or they inform the world that effectively the club's up for sale, and then people make bids. So I don't think, I don't think Qatar are going to suddenly just appear out of the woodwork and buy Manchester United now. I think it's very unlikely, but yeah, we'll see. There's a little bit more here on the Marcus Rashford situation as well, actually. This is coming up from Alex Crook. So obviously Marcus Rashford put out a statement earlier saying that, the Daily Mail were lying about him trying to find an agency to help him leave Manchester United. Alex Crook is reporting this evening that Marcus Rashford has linked up with several agencies, including CAA Stella, to negotiate a move away from Manchester United. He goes on to say that Marcus Rashford has been represented by his brother, Dwayne Maynard. I think if there is any move, whoever does the deal, Maynard is certainly going to want a big part of that. There you go. This is the person who I think's poisoned Marcus Rashford's mind, a person who only cares about himself. His brother, who's not a football agent, who's decided he's going to milk Marcus Rashford's career, give him poor advice and benefit from it. That's how I see this situation. But the story then goes on to say that Stellar Agency is one of the biggest agencies in the country. So while Rashford himself may have not spoken to Stellar, I have it on good authority that people acting on his behalf have had those conversations. So, Marcus Rashford's team around him are actively looking for opportunities to get him out of the club. Maybe Rashford doesn't even want that. Maybe Rashford wants to stay and fight for his place. But what I keep saying to you is that it doesn't seem like it's Rashford making these decisions. It seems like it's the people around him. Now, I'm not standing up for him. I'm just merely... I want Rashford to leave 100%. I'm just saying that it's a shame that you've got somebody who's been badly represented by a family member, in my opinion, and that's probably led us to where we are now with Rashford, realistically. We are in the position we are with him because of the people around him giving him bad advice. It's as simple as that for me. But obviously his actions and stuff too. But imagine you've got a family member every single day saying to you like, oh, your work doesn't appreciate you. Oh, you shouldn't, you sell loads of shirts. Your brand does so much for this club, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's not going to motivate you, is it? If all the people around you are just slagging off the Manchester United, which is obviously what's been happening. So, yeah. What else have we got in the chat today? Okay, Fred's got a good question. I'm going to do a little poll on this before we wrap up the video. So the last poll, 66% of people would agree to loaning Anthony to Real Betis, and 66 say they would loan Anthony to Real Betis, 34 say they wouldn't %. Fred has said this. Was INEOS a mistake? I'd be very interested to see what the results are for this. So I'm going to do this. Was INEOS a mistake? I'll just do that. There you go. You can get involved in that. Obviously, there's loads of different layers to this, but the general factor is, do you think letting INEOS buy their share in Manchester United was a mistake? Let me know. I'm going to say this. I think in the first place, INEOS taking over, see me doing the hand gesture, taking over. They didn't take over anything. They bought a minority stake in a football club. But I think that was a mistake, yeah. Of course it was. Because the other option that we had on the table was clearing the debt, new stadium, reinvesting in the squad, whatever. It was a better offer on the table. So it was a mistake in that sense. Has it worked so far? No. Definitely not. I'm trying to think of a way to justify. Was it better than just keeping the Glazers on their own? That's the difficult question. I think the real question is this, right? It's not, was INEOS a mistake? This is the better question. Would it have been better to just keep the Glazers on their own versus keeping the Glazers as majority owners and having INEOS as minority owners? That's more the question. That's the more difficult question. And I'm going to say this, and this is probably going to be somewhat controversial, and I'd be interested to see what you guys think, but I personally think just keeping the Glazers without INEOS would have been better. And people are going to be like, what? We hate the Glazers. They've done all these horrible things to us. But the problem we have now is that there are so many different people who have a piece of Manchester United. You've got INEOS, you've got the Glazers, and you've got, I think is it about 20, 30% on the New York Stock Exchange? Something like that. So if somebody else wants to come and buy the whole of Manchester United now, it's going to be complicated. Because INEOS might turn around and say, we don't want to sell our share now. Or INEOS might agree to sell their share, and then the Glazers might say, oh, we don't want to sell our share. Do you see what I mean? So in relation to get full ownership, debt cleared, I think it would have been better to keep the Glazers because we haven't cleared the debt and we don't have a full owner. We now have 3 different parties. The New York Stock Exchange, shareholders, the Glazers and INEOS. So it makes it more complicated. There's more people involved in it. And let's be honest, the decisions that have been made by INEOS haven't got us in a better position. Yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult one, but the fact of the matter is this. The Glazers never wanted to sell all of the club. They never did. So, we can cry and say, oh, I wanted the Glazers out, I wanted the debt cleared, but it was never an option. They never were going to accept Qatar's bid. Clear to see. I think 99% of people thought that Qatar were going to win. Nobody expected INEOS to win. I don't think anyway. Whilst the whole takeover saga was going on, everybody was like, oh, it's going to be Qatar, it's going to be Qatar, it's going to be Qatar. That was all you heard. Qatar agree a deal, Qatar this, Qatar that, and then it didn't happen, Yeah, I don't know. I just think that unless they get all of the club, I don't think it's going to get any better because effectively INEOS aren't willing to clear the debt because it's not their debt to clear. That's the fact of the matter. And I don't blame them. We can sit here and say, oh, why won't INEOS clear the debt? It's a disgrace. But they only own 28% of something. Why would you clear somebody else's debt when you still only own 28% of it? That doesn't make any sense, does it? Think about it. It's the Glazers' debt to clear, not INEOS's. So I understand their position, but the reason we are in the financial mess we are, the reason we can't spend money, the reason it's sell to buy, the reason there's financial fair play is because we're in £1 billion worth of debt and we have to service that debt. We have to pay the interest on that debt. So, yeah, we just have to hope that, for me, we just have to hope that it keeps going really, really bad at the moment in the short term. And maybe the Glazers say, you know what, screw this. Let's sell the rest of the club to INEOS and get out of here. Do I think that will happen? No, probably not. But we'll wait and see. Anyway, that's the end of today's show. As I said, during the transfer window, I will try and do 2 shows a day, one in the evening, one in the morning. So make sure you join me for that. We have got a super chat coming in from Ray. Ray has said, INEOS are just puppets for the Glazers. Thank you for your chat. Thank you for your contribution to the channel. I really appreciate that. And you know what, Ray? I agree with you. 100%. INEOS are puppets for the Glazers. They hide behind this PR rubbish that just because Jim Ratcliffe was born a stone's throw from Old Trafford, he is a better fan than anybody else. And it's rubbish. It's complete rubbish. He's a man who doesn't even live in the UK. He lives in Monaco, so he doesn't have to pay tax. He had a season ticket at Chelsea. He tried to buy Barcelona. Then he tried to buy Chelsea. And then his final option was to buy a minority share in Manchester United. And it's very, very clever because the Glazers are clearly still pulling the strings. Remember this. INEOS have taken over the footballing side. INEOS are just doing football. Does the 250 staff members who got sacked, who work in the marketing, who work in the PR, they're not working like that? Wasn't do you see what I'm saying here? That INEOS are taking all of the brunt of, cancelling the charity donations, sacking people, not giving stewards £50 bonuses and all the rest of it. But that's technically not their decision. Think about it. It's public knowledge, reported everywhere, that INEOS are just responsible for the football, for the manager, for the squad, for the training facilities. That's INEOS's responsibility. So the Glazers are clearly involved in all of the other stuff. And all INEOS have done is they've enabled the Glazers to have them as the front, the face of Manchester United. Jim Ratcliffe is now the face of Manchester United. And now the Glazers can make all of these horrible decisions, which, let's remember this, right? If it was just the Glazers still owning the club and they sacked 250 staff members, they cancelled staff parties, and all of these other things that INEOS have done, there'd be riots. There'd be people rioting outside Old Trafford right now. There would be. But because it's owned by the local lad, blah, 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 people are like, oh, yeah, let's trust him. He knows what's best for the club. He supports this club. Like, it's very, very, very clever. And it's effectively manipulating a fan base by playing on the whole narrative that because somebody was born, how old is he? 70-something? Jim Ratcliffe? Let's have a look. He's 72 years of age, Jim Ratcliffe. 72 years of age. Let me have a look. What university did he go to? Jim Ratcliffe went to university at 18 in Birmingham. Let's have a little look at his life quickly. People might not care about this, but I think if I'm going to make this statement, I need to at least... So he was born in Lancashire till the age of 10 when he moved to East Yorkshire. So he lived in the suburbs of Manchester until he was 10 years of age. I mean, let that just sink in for a minute. This man who we're led to believe is, a true red, season ticket holder, home and away. He lived in a suburb on the edge of Manchester until he was 10. And then he moved to Yorkshire. And then he went to university in Birmingham. So he lived in a suburb of Manchester until he was 10 years of age. I mean, really? I get the whole narrative of like, oh, it would be great to have, a fan who goes home and away and blah, blah, blah as the owner. But that's clearly not it, is it? It's just very clever. And I think, the majority of people now are seeing it for what it really is, that it's just a PR stunt to play on your birth certificate and to say, oh, I was born in Manchester. You were born in Manchester and lived there till you were 10 years old and then moved to a whole different place and then moved to Birmingham and then live in Monaco because you don't want to pay any tax. Like, I don't know. I just think I'm just going to have a sip of my water. My throat's suddenly just got really dry. But yeah, I just think it's very, very clever. And the reason I've gone off on this little bit of a rant is because of the super chat from Ray, it was, who just said that INEOS are puppets. And I agree. They are just puppets for the Glazers. Clear to see. But yeah, anyway, I'm going to leave it there. I think if I keep going on about this, I'm going to get myself worked up. But it is frustrating. We are where we are. There's not really too much we can do about it now. The protests have stopped. I don't think it will make any difference anyway. Someone says in the chat, don't forget he's a Chelsea season ticket holder as well. If he's that desperate, he could quite easily have got on his private jet to his club at Manchester United. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I mean, that does sum it up. It's somebody who's a billionaire and he was going to Chelsea games as a season ticket holder. I mean, London to Manchester is what, like an hour and a half, 2 hours on a train? And he has a private jet. He could have probably got to Manchester in like 20 minutes from London on a plane. I never saw Jim Ratcliffe at Old Trafford before he bought the club or bought a share in the club. No, I don't mean me personally seeing him, but when you watch games on the TV, they always be like, oh, look, I don't know, David Beckham's in the crowd tonight. Or, oh, look, it's, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. Like, he was never there, I don't think. Anyway, I'm going to wrap the video up here, guys. I'm going to go and chill out for a bit. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to drop a like before you leave. Subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'll be back live tomorrow morning, about 7:30 a.m. UK time. Have a great evening. Bye for now.